Laura Johnson was adopted at 4 months old. She has lived in Duluth her entire life. She is married with 2 children. Wayne Kangas of Hibbing was adopted at 3 months old and is married with 2 young daughters. And Julie Kim was adopted at the age of 3 and raised in the Twin Cities. She's lived in Duluth since 1991 and works in the mental health field. Great to have all 3 of you here. You've shared some important things for the rest of us, I think, to learn tonight. Laura, as we saw in Kaomi's report, being part of the Korean Adoptees group has been important to discovering more about your heritage, it sounds like. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So growing up, it wasn't an identity that I embraced. It wasn't something that I considered part of who I was. And as I shared in the piece, becoming a mother really kind of forced some of that confrontation of who I was and how I chose to identify in guiding my daughter and how she would choose to identify. And so the group has really been a support system, as not necessarily the group is going to provide all the answers, but the group is going to be there as we try to navigate who we are and why we're here, and building that community together.
Mm-hmm. Wayne, growing up, did you feel different from other children in your neighborhood or your school, or wasn't that an issue?
I grew up in Cherry, Minnesota, and I was the only Korean adoptee or Korean person in my school. So, growing up, it was, yes, I recognized that it was different, but it was never really part of who I was. It was just like this thing that existed. It wasn't until much later in college, I studied abroad in Korea, and I connected with a lot of Koreans and other Asians in college, that my identity I started to have this complicated identity crisis of sorts. And the journey really really started for me at that point.
Mm-hmm. Julie, was it hard to find connection here when you first discovered that you were a little different from perhaps your classmates?
Yeah, when I was adopted, I was raised actually in the early 70s. And so, and the community that I grew up in outside of the Twin Cities was very rural at the time. And so there were not anybody, I don't think there was anybody that looked like me. Mm-hmm. And so, and just sort of navigating the communities of being sort of the only one has been, was a huge part of growing up, and all that went with that too.
Mm-hmm. Julie, you work in mental health, and in the past, adoptive families have been encouraged to raise their children in kind of a colorblind sort of a family environment. Is that possible? And if so, is it positive?
I don't think it's possible because of just the physical appearance is so different compared to your adoptive families. Mm-hmm. Because of being adopted into a white family, I obviously stick out compared to all of my other relatives and things. I think colorblindness excludes our original heritage of being Korean. And so at times I think people get assimilated into the white culture as being raised as white, even though we know we are so different from that.
Have any of you returned to South Korea? And what was that like?
Yeah, so I was just there the end of September and coming into October. I'd studied abroad there in a fall semester. So I was there in 2009, and then this was the first chance that I had to go back, and it's great. Food's great. I love being there. There's like a inner peace that I get from being there, and it's like going home. But then I am also ready to come home, as I was ready to come home as well. So you would
definitely go back again and explore.
I plan on it. I plan on bringing my girls back there when they get older, and they'll remember it, and they can have that experience too.
Mm-hmm. And Laura, you've been there as well, right?
I went in 2013, and I actually got connected to Amy Davis, who helped found our group on a Facebook group because she was going on the same journey back. that I had experienced in 2013. And so we connected, and we both realized that we lived in Duluth. We started taking Korean language lessons together. We attended a Korean conference together, a Korean Adoptee conference together, and that's really where she found the inspiration to start this group. And so, you know, coming home from Korea, which was such a homecoming and such a profound experience, was very isolating and was very lonely, and I'm so grateful that I have this group, because I think together we're kind of helping to come to terms with those feelings of isolation and loneliness as we make our way back to what is home.
Have your adoptive families been supportive of this journey as you've looked to the past, or do they on some level see it as a rejection of their love and the family that they provided for you?
I don't think that they have been unsupportive. I think that they have always considered me to be their daughter, and I consider myself to be, they are my parents. They aren't my adoptive mom and dad, they are my mom and dad. And I think it's a both and. I think that there is a space to have that type of exploration to my identity and my heritage, and help kind of provide that for my children, as well as hold my parents as my
So
parents.
at the same time, they've allowed you to be Korean.
Right.
Is that the case with all three of you?
I think for me, I'm much older in general, and I think back in the day there wasn't a lot of support and encouragement to pursue being Korean. I don't remember. I was adopted through the Holt Adoption Agency, and at times they would have these Korean adopted little gatherings, but otherwise there wasn't much access to that. And so I think my mom, did the best that she could with, trying to raise, myself and my adopted sister, in an environment.
The times have changed.
Times have really changed, for sure.
If someone's interested in joining up with your group, learning more about it, what can you tell us about the group in terms of when it meets, the kinds of activities, and how people would connect with you?
So we meet monthly. We exist on Facebook, Minnesota Arrowhead Region Korean Adoptees. We call ourselves MARCAD. And we do all kinds of fun things. In a month we're going to Bentleyville as families. We're bringing together our families and our children and our partners to build community around Christmas. But we exist, and we'd love for more CADs to join us.
Good. Well, Laura, Wayne, Kim, thank you all very much. I mean, Julie Kim, for being here tonight. I really appreciate the insight that you've given all of us here on the program. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
감사합니다.